Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifini. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai.
Good morning.
Yes, let's start with these day newspapers. Nigeria's newspaper of record. Now, the lead story, Ondo election will be free, fair, credible, Buhari assures Nigerians. President APC governors rally support for Akeredolu. Ondo governor jittery of Jagede's popularity, says Uche Secondos, the PDP chairman. IG, that's the Inspector General of Police, warns politicians against violence. Yes, President Buhari has weathered it again, and we just hope the Edo situation will replicate itself as far as free, fair, and violence-free election is concerned. And today, the police will also do some show of force by parading its men and material on the streets of Akure and other cities in Ondo State. Now, let's look at other newspapers, what they are reporting this morning. The New Telegraph. Senate to federal government. Stop excessive borrowing to fund projects. Lawan seeks agencies merger to cut governance costs. Obi, that's ex-governor Obi, running mate to Atiku in the 2019 election. Obi, government should borrow ideas from China, not money. Buhari presents 2021 budget as Senate OK's medium-term expenditure framework, FSP. Now, the Daily Independent newspaper, still from the Senate. Senate approves plan to borrow 4.28 trillion naira in 2021. Want FSAS reorganize others' trial of killer cops. Says poor salaries cause of corruption among judges. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper. How Bamali emerged as Emir of Zawzaw. Contenders congratulate new monarch, Buhari governors hail appointment. According to the Daily Trust, yes, Ahmed, the new Emir of Zawzaw, Ahmed Nuhu Bamali, yes, until his elevation, the Magaji Guru of Zawzaw, and the immediate past ambassador to the Kingdom of Thailand and Myanmar. Now, according to the Daily Trust, the first list of candidates submitted 2 weeks ago was rejected by the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, because the name of Bamali was not on that list. And Bamali happens to be a very close ally of the governor of Kaduna State. These governors always have a way of intervening in picking traditional rulers, especially when you have a number of candidates. You can't do that in the Kingdom of Benin. Now, let's move on to other subjects. The Guardian newspaper. National Assembly delay of PIB stirs anger. Yes, after the euphoria that at last the PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill, has landed at the National Assembly for work. Now, according to this report, the National Assembly is delaying the debate, moving debate to 2021, troubles stakeholders. Buhari faces fresh attack on petrol price hike. Citizens lament poverty, inflation, unemployment. Stakeholders decry poor resources utilization. Don asks president to increase minimum wage. Now, the Punch newspaper, and Ruben, this is the one you were very angry about. The Punch newspaper, bulk of education budget spent on public varsities 10,500 professors, federal government. Properly, the Minister of State for Education, Mekam Wajuba, who made that statement yesterday. I agree with you, Ruben, you don't talk down on groups in the country. And these professors that have paid their dues, you don't have to talk down on them. However, the other issues there, education sector can't progress when ASU goes on 6-month strike, says Wajuba. I agree with him totally with that. Because after 6 months of strike, ASU is still not ready to go back to work. I think they should find a middle ground. You don't destroy the system that you are working in. Mine workers don't destroy the mines when they're on strike. Why should the university lecturers be on such prolonged strike? It started with enrollment on the IPPIS. And suddenly they have extended it to include all outstanding issues. It is not fair to the children of the poor who cannot go to the private universities, Ruben. And I think ASU, as an association, need to do a rethink. And I know there are many lecturers who don't agree with this position, the position of ASU, but they have to speak out. Now, the foreign newspapers, the Guardian of UK, bars and restaurants in hotspots face stricter curbs as virus surges. Large areas of the north of England could have pubs and restaurants restricted within days in a scramble to stem an alarming rise in coronavirus cases. And the Secretary for Health is saying that ministers will be meeting today and with leaders in these areas to review the situation and perhaps bring in stricter measures to curb the rise in the virus surge in the UK. Now, New York Times, yes, in clash of virus, Harris put Pence on the defensive. She was able to put Pence on the defensive without necessarily being aggressive. Calm like cucumber, smile on her face, but she drove down all the hard points with Vice President Pence relying on non-existent facts to defend the position which his principal, Donald Trump, has canvassed over time. Is there any time for comments? Ruben and Rufai.
Well, let me first start with the U.S.
Yes.
I made the point that the two vice presidential candidates did a better job of promoting their principles than their principals themselves did when they had their own debate. But, of course, as Laurie Ladd pointed out earlier on, the discussion was very light on policy, but the two of them came across as better communicators. And there's no doubt that coronavirus has changed the dynamics of the 2020 presidential election. President Trump is boasting that he thinks that it's something that God did.
He calls it a blessing.
A blessing from God for him to be able to come up with a cure for coronavirus.
No, for him to be infected.
And there is a lot of politics that we're seeing, and we hope that the excitement over the cocktail of drugs, the two antimonoclonal antibodies, are being promoted by Regeneron. We hope that, all of that won't be overly politicized, because President Trump is already saying he's going to issue an emergency authorization so that other people can also have access to the drugs that he used.
That will be political,
yes,
not scientific.
But emergency authorization, as we have seen in Russia and also in other parts of the world, is something that people have to be cautious about. And that's the position of the World Health Organization. And even in the United States, medical experts are saying that the drugs by Regeneron, that we don't have enough data yet, that more data will be needed, and people should just be cautious. Now, you talked about the Emir of Zazzau, the 19th Emir of Zazzau that has emerged. Well, just to put a footnote to that, you will recall that I mean, you made a point that the governor got involved and governors have a way of getting involved. But the other view is that in this particular case, justice would seem to have been done in a sense, because for about 100 years, no other person from this ruling house, the Malawa ruling house, has been emir of Zazzau. And yet, you have those 4 ruling houses taking their turns in the last 100 years. So some people say, well, this is justice at the end of the day, considering the fact that the 19th emir that has now emerged is a great-grandson of the very first emir of Zazzau between 1804 and 1821. That's Musa Bamali, his great-grandfather. And his own father had made an attempt when the late emir, this past immediate emir emerged, and he lost out. And he was asked to move to another territory where he could be emir. He said, no, it's the act of God. Whenever God wants him to be emir of Zazzau, it will happen. And if it doesn't happen in his lifetime, it will happen with his son. And this is what has now happened. He has been Magajin Gari Zazzau for many years. He was even deputizing for his father. So that's the other side of it. And I imagine that the uneasy calm that 1 or 2 newspapers are talking about, well, what we see is that his emergence has been very well received.
Yes, the other contenders have congratulated him.
So,
which is a welcome development.
So I think it's important to balance it in that regard. As for education and the Minister of State, well, we made a point. You have reiterated the point. Government officials should just be careful. What ASU is saying is that they cannot return, lecturers cannot return to the classrooms as directed by the federal government on empty stomach.
Stomach infrastructure.
Well, and the empty stomach that I guess Professor Biodun Oguyemi was referring to has to do with the outstanding 2009 agreement, many parts of which there is a lot of contention between government and ASU.
No, Ruben, he was actually talking of salaries not paid over 3 months.
But you know the federal government claims that every lecturer now is on IPs and that salaries have been paid. So
and the lecturers are saying that not all have been paid, yes, they have withheld salaries of some.
Well, maybe those are the lecturers, maybe there are still a few lecturers who have not signed up onto the IPs. And the minister saying we have 10,500 professors in federal government universities who are taking a lot of money and who should not ask for more money because there's no money anywhere. I think that's unfortunate. In fact, we don't have enough professors. Yes. If it is true that we just have 10,500 professors in all the federal universities, as many as they are, then something is wrong. And then secondly, he's complaining about money. The major concern is that we are not funding education enough. Yes. We have problem of infrastructure. Yeah. Most of these lecturers are no longer doing research because they don't get the necessary grants. And you find an education system whereby the academics are distracted, where there is no infrastructure, where the students themselves are poorly served. Yeah. These are the issues that we will expect a Minister of State for Education to be talking about, not to be engaging in an unnecessary, destructive, unhelpful altercation with the leadership of the academic union.
I mean, let me just speak from there, Dr. Abbas. It was quite very sad yesterday.
But Rufai, we cannot destroy the system with prolonged strike.
We can't destroy the system with prolonged strike, but people should do what they ought to do. The agreements have been signed on ground and they've not been met. It even went very awry yesterday when we're talking about professors going back to the farm, but there's no time to talk about this.